It's always an honor to be asked to deliver a Dvar Torah, but I have to confess to some brief moments of hesitation and trepidation as I channeled generations of B'nai Mitzvah parents who get their kids' dates and immediately run to the Jewish calendar to see what Parsha they got. And so it is with me, as our Parsha this week is Parshat Truma, the beginning of the section of Sefer Shmot, which consumes column after column after column of technical, prosaic, and dare I say, mind-numbing directions for assembling the tabernacle, a structure that does not exist anymore and for which we have no modern use. It's like you went to IKEA and bought a giant and ornate shed for your backyard and then attempted to read through 30 pages of instructions, translated from the Swedish. And to think that I missed the 10 Commandments by a couple weeks. But this is the very aspect of this Parsha which asks us, which begs us to take a closer look. If we abide by the precept that the Torah doesn't waste any language, that there's not even one extraneous word in the Torah, then of course we must find a meaning behind dedicating so many pages to this material. And in fact, the Parsha opens up with an instruction which is completely familiar to those of us who work for Jewish communities. The text reads, Daber el b'nei Yisrael v'chuli truma me'et kol ish asher yidvenu libo tikhu et trumati. In other words, we read about history's very first building fund. Everyone in the community was commanded to contribute towards building the Mishkan. And what were they instructed to donate? Well, there were no cash pledges back then. The people were told that they had to give gold, silver, copper, beautifully colored wool, animal skins, acacia wood, oil, spices, and precious stones. I mean, can you even imagine? And it also makes you wonder how these wandering ex-slaves even had all of these items in their possession. But the rationale is evident. This huge group of Israelites, newly freed from hundreds of years of slavery, had never had to act like a community. Up until this point, they were told what to do and when to do it. First by the Egyptians, and then by God. God brought the plagues upon Egypt, performed the miracle of splitting the Red Sea, gave Moshe the Aseret HaDibrot. So would it have been so out of character? Would it have been so surprising if the text told us that God miraculously provided a ready-made, prefab Mishkan for the Israelites to schlep with them during their period of wandering? Why not? God caused a pillar of fire to appear, which guided them during their exodus. He provided manna to feed them. So the next logical step would be for God to say, here's a place to worship where you can find my presence. But instead, we have the first time the Israelites need to start doing for themselves. And those of us in positions of leadership already know how this works. We know that people take more responsibility for themselves and for others when they have ownership of a project and when they have skin in the game. Take a close look at the language used in the text. One might think that for a giant construction project like the Mishkan, the Torah would use the Hebrew word livnot, to build. But instead, what's the verb that appears countless times in this parsha? Ve'asita, aseh, make, do. Building something is a specific act, and especially for those of us who need to schedule a service call to change a light bulb, something that not everyone can relate to. But aseh, do, well, that's a call to action that resonates with every member of the community. And indeed, it was just last week that we read the famous phrase uttered by the Israelites, Na'aseh v'nishma. We will do it first, and then we will seek to understand it. In other words, do the behavior first, and the kavanah will follow later. Amazing to think that the Torah successfully defined cognitive behavioral therapy thousands of years before its time. And therein lies the lesson for those of us who serve our congregations, the Cantors Assembly, and our communities at large. It's not just the routine act of building things that will benefit ourselves and future generations, but our seeking to embody the word la'asot, doing, making, creating, and taking personal responsibility for and ownership of our Jewish institutions. As we read in the Parsha, Ve'asu li mikdash v'shachanti betocham. The text tells us, only with your actions, with your decisions, with your resources, make me a holy place, and then you will find my presence among you. Chodesh Tov and Shabbat Shalom.